Oh, hello. Welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the newly previewed Brood Brothers kill team. So this information came out on the internet on Saturday from all the people which are part of Games Workshop's influencer program. I'm not, but I've now seen their videos. I've percolated on the thoughts that they've had, and I'm going to share with you my own thoughts on the team. So the Brood Brother kill team. Infiltration, security, and seek and destroy, which is fine. I think more often than not with this team, you're probably taking seek and destroy. I don't find infiltration or security are generally very strong decks, and the two that I'm generally looking for in most of my games are seek and destroy and recon, which these guys don't have, so I'll probably go for seek and destroy. Now, the team construction is really interesting. So you've got to take a Brood Brother commander. The commander has three different weapon options. So you can have a bolt pistol and a chainsword and claw, a drum-fed autogun and a bayonet, or a las pistol and a power weapon and claw. Honestly, I think that the power weapon and claw is the best build, but there are really good arguments for all three builds. I think that it's pretty well balanced as a choice. Which makes a change from the usual business of just taking the one with the plasma pistol. And then we've got a list from which we can take 9 specialists, which effectively means that troopers notwithstanding, you have to decide one of these characters not to take, right? So you can take a guy called an agitator, you can take a guy called an icon ward, a knife fighter, a medic, a sapper, a veteran, a vox operator, and then alongside that you've got 3 slots for gunners. Now these are doing the same thing as the Kazakin, where the sniper is one of your gunner slots. So you've got, think of 3 gunner slots, and in those 3 slots you've got a choice of 5 operatives. You can have a flamer, a grenade launcher, a melter gun, a plasma gun, and a sniper. Personally, I think the best choices here will be the plasma gun, obviously, the grenade launcher. I think you bring those to every game. And then you're tossing up between the sniper and the melter. Most of the time, if you ask me for a general pick, I would pick the sniper. But the melter's really good as well. I think you never take a flamer, okay? And I don't think you ever take only 2 gunners. I think it's worth dropping one of the other named operatives to take that 3rd gunner. Then you have 3 slots for special things. So you can take a patriarch, as has been well kind of trailed. The patriarch takes up 3 slots. You can take a pair of familiars. They take up 1 slot, but they get you 2 models, but they are GA2. You can take a Magus. He takes up 2 slots. Or you can take a Primus that he takes up 2 slots. You can take troopers, basic troopers in these slots as well. So you can take 3 basic troopers. Now they are also GA2, so you can't get an extra activation, right? Whichever way you slice it, and I'll explain more about this in a minute, but whichever way you slice it, this is a 12 activation team, okay? You can take tactical assets, which I suppose would mean you were less than 12 activations. Tactical assets, we'll look at those in a second. They're generally really poor as well. Again, if you just want to watch the first couple of seconds and get a headline from me, I think the best choices are either the Primus and the Familiars or the Patriarch. The Magus and the Familiars might have play as well, but I don't think you're ever taking troopers or tactical assets, to be perfectly honest with you. Okay, so let's have a look at Crossfire. So this is their core ability, right? Every kill team tends to have at least one sort of big main core identity ability. So I'll read this one to you. Crossfire. Each time after a friendly Brood Brother operative fights in combat as the active operative or makes a shooting attack, if the enemy operative isn't incapacitated, that enemy operative gains one of your Crossfire tokens. Each time a friendly Brood Brother operative fights in combat or makes a shooting attack in the roll attack die step of that combat or shooting attack, you can spend any number of Crossfire tokens the enemy operative has. For each Crossfire token you spend, you can re-roll one of your attack dice, and then you remove the spent Crossfire token. Now, this is interesting. It does seem really powerful, okay, but remember that generally you're hitting on a 4+. So this is basically a case of giving you they're giving you a low ballistic skill, and then they're giving you a hoop to jump through to get back to reliable shooting. Okay, so they're relying on this Crossfire ability really to land the shots. Obviously, if you build up loads of tokens, you can get really, really reliable shooting, and it can become quite powerful. But just having like 1 or 2 tokens, it just means that you're likely to actually hit things with your weapons. Now, this reliance on rerolls does mean that Brood Brothers really strongly dislike certain teams. So I'm quite hype on Night Lords at the moment, and Night Lords have the equipment Flayed Skin, which I think, if you remember my Night Lord video, I'm quite big on Flayed Skin, which turns off rerolls, okay? And then, famously, the Arbites can take loads of strobing phosphor lumens and just turn off rerolls. And I'm sure there are other things out there in the game at the moment that turn off rerolls. So if you come up against any of those teams that have the ability to get that kind of ability, it feels like it's going to really, really punish the Brood Brothers, who are really built around having a lot of rerolls in the turn. But it is pretty easy to get Crossfire tokens on a model. You can shoot someone, you just declare, I am shooting you with this lasgun. Doesn't matter what the dice that you roll say, you've got that Crossfire token on them, right? Because you've made a shooting attack. Okay? So they've gained that Crossfire token. So let's have a look at the tactical assets. So these are things that you can take instead of taking a Magus, a Primus, a Patriarch, extra troopers, or the little psychic familiars. They don't excite me. I'll say that from the bat. So first one is interference. So select one enemy operative within red of a kill zone edge, excluding your opponent's kill zone edge, and roll 1d6. If the result is equal to or greater than the enemy operative's APL, subtract 1 from its APL. It's neither here nor there, is it? It's an ability. It might do nothing, and you're sacrificing an extra model on your team. No, thank you. Lookout. Select one enemy operative. That operative and all enemy operatives within circle of it gain a Crossfire token. So that's not bad. And it's worth noting, if we check the reading on the actual rules here, the tactical assets, it does say they're not recorded on your roster or data slate. So my understanding is you can just play, you could play the same one 3 times, I think. Right? Yeah. So you could just play the same one over and over and over. So it's not like you have to take each one individually. So that's something, I suppose, but I still doesn't really excite me, okay? And then you've got reinforcement. So this one sounds interesting, but it really isn't. So set up one new friendly Brood Brother Trooper operative with an order of your choice, wholly within red of your kill zone edge, and not within engagement range of an enemy operative. Activate it. It's treated as having performed a normal move, subtract action points accordingly, and then continue its activation as normal. You cannot use this asset more than once per battle. Okay. That friendly trooper operative doesn't need to be on your roster, can't have any equipment, but narrative play count has been set for deployment, doesn't need to be on your data slate. Right, so, but you could just take a trooper in the same slot where you're using up for this tactical asset. You could just take a trooper, if that's what you wanted to do, who would then deploy with your team at the start. Maybe if he could move on from the sides of the board, that would be something, but it's within red of your kill zone edge and he counts as moving, so you're really not gaining anything. I personally believe these tactical assets have been put into the rules because they later down the road plan to sell this team without the sprue that makes up the Primus, the Magus, the Patriarch, and the 2 familiars. And so they want to try and put something in so that the team is technically playable, just like Vet Guard, where everybody runs them as a 14 model team, but they've got various off-board support things to make them just about playable. This is the same thing, and really I think these are best ignored. If I'm wrong and you think that there's use for one or more of these, let me know in the comments, but I really think that they are pointless and a waste of time. Let's look at the strategic ploys. So we've got embedded. Until the end of the turning point, each time a shooting attack is made against a friendly Brood Brother operative that's in cover, provided by heavy terrain, in the roll defense dice step of the shooting attack, before rolling your defense dice, 1 additional dice can be retained as a successful normal save as a result of cover. Now, we do have a way that we'll see later on to give all of our operatives a 5-up invulnerable save, which could mean that coupled with embedded, if somebody shoots you with a melter gun, you're still getting saved twice, right? Or a plasma gun for that matter. Automatically, and then you can roll your third and hope that it's a 5+. But if you haven't got that combination, basically what you need to take the Magus to get that, then otherwise I think this could be powerful still if you were set up for it. Like if you looked at the board turn 2 and you went, oh, I've got loads of guys on engage now, probably be the start of turn 3, right? Got loads of guys on engage, and they're behind heavy cover. I've got the spare CP. I guess I'll turn this on. But I don't think it's something that you sort of big brain play around. You've got to be more reactive and look at the board state and be like, oh yeah, actually that would help in this. The way the board is set up now, so I'll turn it on. But I don't think it's, again, something that you really play around, right? Overcharged lasguns. So this is, we've seen this sort of thing before. So 1 CP. Until the end of the turning point, all of your las weapons, they essentially gain +1 AP1 and they get hot, right? And they'd use more words for that. But like with a lot of these overcharged lasgun rules, I know there'll be people that get overexcited by it. But I think that the main thing here is it's one of these things where if you're in turn 3, turn 4, right, and you're losing, and most of your really good guys are dead, and you find yourself with, well, I've got my comms. We've all been there. I've got my comms, and I've got a medic, and I've got this, and I've got that. And you just got a couple of guys with lasguns, and you've got spare CP, and it's like, well, I'm going to try and do something. You can use overcharged lasguns then, right? But I don't, beyond that, as like, this is what I'm going to try and do now to try and get, as many VP as I can in this game as a desperation move. I don't see that it really has a place while the game's going well. I think you've just got better things to spend your CP on than overcharging your lasguns. Pervasive. Until the end of the turning point, each time a friendly Brood Brother operative is activated, ignore the first distance of white it travels for a climb, a drop, or a traverse during the activation. So this is really good. I've been on a lot of maps where you're getting out of your deployment zone feels like a hassle sometimes, and so I can easily see spending this in turning point 1 just to get the free traverse out of the over the ubiquitous Octarius like terrain that's probably in your way, so you can get out to where you need to go, right? I can also see maybe using it to get up on top of a building and move a little bit by ignoring the first circle of the climb. That's pretty good as well. I think it's a really useful ploy. I think I can see wanting to use it in turn 1. I can see wanting to use it in future turns as well, depending on the board state. But a really, really useful toolbox to have. And then finally we've got Uprising. Uprising is probably the most exciting strategic ploy. So 1 CP. Until the end of the turning point, the first time each friendly Brood Brother operative performs either a fight or shoot action in each of its activations. If its order was changed from conceal to engage at the start of that activation, the target gains a Crossfire token as soon as it's selected, instead of after the activation. This has no effect if that friendly operative was activated within engagement range of an enemy operative. I think this is something that you do every single game at the start of turn 2. Like, I think the way this team is basically going to play is that you are on conceal in turn 1, and you're moving up, and you're trying to capture objectives, and maybe you get a shot with your sniper if you're very lucky, and, you put down your explosives, and there's little bits and pieces that you can do. And then in turn 2, you decide, right, now we're going to do Uprising, and then you go loud and try and kill fools, and have a big turn that way. Really important. Make sure, but it's not a big investment. It's 1 CP and 1 turning point. You could technically try and use it again in like turning point 4, right? Because turning point 1 you conceal, turning point 2 you go to engage, turning point 3 you go back to conceal. But at that point, going back to conceal in turning point 3, like, you're probably not going to want to do that because you're probably going to have stuff to do. But yeah, I think you're going to use this once per game in turning point 2, and it's going to make it a big turn for you potentially. Right, tactical ploys. So you got idolization. 1 CP. Use the tactical ploy after rolling attack dice for a friendly Brood Brother operative, excluding your leader. Remember that your leader, like if you don't take a Primus, a Magus, or a patriarch, then your leader is your commander. But if you do take one of those 3 things, your commander loses the leader tag. So, for a friendly Brood Brother operative, excluding a leader, if the friendly Brood Brother leader or the Brood Brother icon ward is within red of that friendly operative, you can retain one of your failed hits as a successful normal hit instead, or one of your successful normal hits as a critical hit instead. Now, this is pretty good because your big weakness is actually hitting things with this team, and so this gives you an extra way to do that, and it's 1 CP for one guy in one combat or whatever, but it's still pretty good. Like, it's pretty good, pretty useful. And in fact, this tactical ploy is one of the things that's making me, because the icon, as I went through this, the icon ward had kind of made my list of is this the one guy that you don't take? And the existence of this ploy, coupled with the rest of things on his card, we'll see when we get to him, makes me kind of think, oh, maybe you really want the icon ward, actually. You've got Insidious. So Insidious is 1 CP. Use it before and after an activation. Before the next activation, you can perform a free dash with one Brood Brother operative, so long as it starts and ends the activation not within line of sight of an enemy. Really powerful. There are times in Kill Team when I've been just out from being able to get onto an objective or get to where I need to be, and this is a very mobile team. It's got some stuff for forward moving at the start of the game, but it's also got this ability, so you can move things along quite far. I think a really useful ability to have, an extra dash for 1 CP. Yeah, you've got that limitation of having to not be within line of sight of an enemy operative, which might be difficult to do later in the game, but certainly early in the game when you're trying to grab those objectives, it could be reasonably simple. Ruthless Coordination is probably my favourite tactical ploy though, so 1 CP. Use this tactical ploy when determining if an enemy operative is in a friendly Brood Brother operative's line of sight. Determine visibility of normal, but you can instead determine cover and obscuring from another friendly Brood Brother operative that both aforementioned operatives are visible to, but that isn't within engagement range of an enemy operative. So for example, if you have a plasma gunner on the ground level and he wants to shoot somebody, but that somebody is concealed behind a barricade, and you've got your sniper on a vantage point, concealed with a sniper rifle, you can send 1 CP, okay, and you can basically get the sniper to yell to the plasma gun, hey, he's ducked right behind that barricade that's right in front of you, and your plasma gun goes, all right, thanks, and shoots the plasma at the barricade, and preferably kills the guy. Like, this whole thing of snipers calling out to their comrades when somebody's, like, stooped behind a low wall, I'm pretty appalled, actually, that you need to be infected by the hive mind to figure out that might be a thing. Like, what, in the Imperial Guard, the sniper just goes, oh, look at that, Larry can't see that guy's crouched behind that wall. If he could see him, he'd totally kill him, but he can't see him. Shall I call out? No. I'll just sit here. I don't want to do anything that might draw attention to myself, because I'm hoping to survive this battle, you know? Unquestioning Loyalty is the last one. 1 CP. Use this tactical ploy when a friendly leader operative visible to and within circle of a friendly Brood Guard operative is selected as the target of a combat or shooting attack. You can resolve that combat or shooting attack against the friendly Brood Guard operative. Instead, this ploy has no effect on shooting attacks made from weapons that have the blast or torrent special rule, or attacks made against each operative within a distance of a specified point, e.g. mines. So this is the good old lookout, sir, yeah, that's been a thing in 40k, I'm going to say since Dark Millennium. Like, it was 2nd edition Dark Millennium where the card was actually printed, lookout, sir, yeah, and then they dropped the, like, onomatopoeia for a death scream in later rules. It was just a rule called lookout, sir, ... that called back to that original card in Dark Millennium. Random trivia for you, right? There you go. Now, that's good for keeping an important character alive. What's more important is that we have an operative that can do this for 0 CP as well, which is pretty nice. Yeah. So now we know what that is. When we see that operative, we'll remember, oh yeah, that's that one where we can redirect it and take the hit for our boss. All right. So let's look at the commander, who's kind of your leader, but he's not going to be your leader if you've taken a Primus or a Patriarch or a Magus, which you probably, like, spoilers for later in the video, but you should be taking one of those things. He has the really sad standard human profile of 3 circle move, APL 2, GA 1, Def 3, a 5 up save. He has 8 wounds, but don't get excited. He only has 8 wounds because he's the leader. This is in fact going to be another 7 wound team, just like Vet Guard and Novitiates. Even though most people aren't 7 wound teams anymore, you've got to try and make this one work. Okay, he will die therefore reasonably easily. Okay. Now, he has one ability, Coordinate, which you can use once in the strategy phase. It's your turn to do strategic deploy or pass. You can use this ability instead. If you do, select one enemy operative visible to this operative to gain a Crossfire token. So you can hand out a free Crossfire token. That's pretty cool. And I can see, right, weapons. Because of that ability, the Coordinate, I can see the argument that you want to give him the drum-fed auto gun. Because even though the drum-fed auto gun's not great, 4 dice hit on 3s, 2-3, you got ceaseless. But by doing the shooting attacks, you're handing out another Crossfire. So if you can see someone to shoot them, you can put one Crossfire token on with Coordinate, then you can shoot them, and you put a second Crossfire coordinate token on them with Coordinate. And then someone with potentially a good gun can come and kill them. And that's quite nice. But for me, I would take the one of the close combat profiles for 3 reasons, really. Like, first of all, I want to use the cool plastic part that has the gene. I'm not being funny, but I want to use the cool plastic part that has the Gene Stealer arm. Like, it would be upsetting to not use the awesome bits on the sprue and to just build a Cadian with a funny head, to me. Secondly, like, people, even if you're being quite conservative with him and like hanging out the back and spotting out for things, people will come to you. By and large, people will come to you to try and take your objective, and having that guy at the back there with a power sword is good. And you can also be aggressive with him. I generally have better results when I play aggressively in Kill Team, right? Now, why do I go for the power weapon and the claw and not the bolt pistol and the chainsword? Like, yes, I understand. The chainsword and claw is actually not that much worse than the power weapon as far as its damage goes. It has rending. And it has, it's 4-5 instead of 4-6. But I really rate lethal 5-up. I think if you crunch the numbers, like, I know that the chainsaw has rending, but I think if you crunch the numbers, lethal 5-up is going to get you more crits. And in combat, it's really just a case of wanting to get as many crits as possible. That's what makes the difference, right? It's not even about the damage that the crit does, it's about the fact that the crits can only be parried by other crits, right? So I love lethal 5-up wherever I see it. I think that's the combat weapon that I probably want to take, the one with lethal 5-up. So I go for that. Plus, as you saw before, we've got ways of boosting the damage on the last pistol if we really want to. We can give it AP 1. That's a thing. If you want to give him a better, you can buy equipment to make the last pistol better if you're really worried about it. I'm not convinced that an extra crit damage on the bolt gun is worth giving up the lethal 5-up on the power weapon. But there you go. Plus, it's just so much cooler. Right, now we're going to cover gunners and snipers pretty quick. Put them on the same page because, like, they're competing for those 3 slots. You've got 3 slots to take 3 of these, and you've got 5 choices, right? So we've done this dance. We've done this dance in so many other teams, right? You take a plasma gun, right, because it's the best thing in Kill Team, and you take a grenade launcher because it's a long-range gun with AP 1, right, and 4-5 damage is pretty good. And then basically, you're toying up between the melter gun and the flamer. The melter gun is obviously 6-3 damage with AP2, 4 mortal wounds on the hit, but you need to be within red. Meanwhile, the sniper rifle is 4 dice hit on 2s, 3-3 damage, mortal wounds 3 on the crit, heavy and silence. I generally, like, if I had to build one, I'd build the sniper. I think it's better. The melter gun's not a bad choice. I know in my Night Lords video, I was evangelizing melter guns and saying, oh, take a melter gun even over a plasma gun sometimes. Yeah, for elite teams. The whole point with an elite team is you can't afford to have one of your 6 models standing at the back with a long-range gun going, oh, I've got a long-range gun, right? When you have this many models, you can afford to have a sniper up on a vantage point, especially with the ploys that we looked at where they can cooperate and the sniper can call out targets to other people as well. I think the sniper's just the best shot, but obviously if you're playing into Custodes, if you're playing in, and people do play Compendium Custodes, it happens, if you're playing into one of the Marine teams, if you're into the Dark, all these things might make you consider a melter gun. And definitely if I was going to a tournament, I'd want that extra melter gun on my roster so I could flex into it when needs be. But generally I prefer the sniper. Agitator. So, Agitator, I really don't like this model. Oh, it annoys me. Because it's trying to do so much and it delivers on almost none of it. So he's got a shock maul. It's 4 dice hitting on 4s, 4/4 damage with stun. Amazing. I'm not. Is it? It just. I've hit on 4s and I got. Okay, right. I mean, you're getting a reroll because he's always going to be in range of his own. We're going to read Siren Caster in a minute. So it's secretly it's 4/4 damage hitting on 4s with a reroll. But even so, he's not going to accomplish very much, right? He's got Devoted, so once per turning point, when the operative fights in combat, in the resolve successful hit step of the combat, you can ignore the damage inflicted on from one normal hit. So he's trying to fool you into thinking like, oh, well, I've got stun on a crit, and I've got this like just a scratch type ability where I can ignore a damage every single combat. Like maybe I can tank something. Like you've got 7 wounds. So yeah, if the dice really go your way and you get the crit and you got your Devoted and they don't roll so hot, you can survive a combat. But that's not great, is it? It's like, okay. So the real reason you might want to take him is the Siren Caster. Each time a friendly Brood Brother operative fights in combat or makes shooting attack against an enemy operative within red of this operative, in the roll attack dice step of that combat or shooting attack, you can spend 1 Crossfire token for free, even if the enemy operative has none. So you basically got to run this guy up, get him within red of something you want to shoot, and then shoot it with something else that's further away, and it gets a free re-roll, which is, don't get me wrong, it is powerful, but your opponent's not going to let your Agitator live for very long. And then they're going to charge him, and then, you can try and hope maybe that you stay alive, and then while you're trying to parry and stay alive, maybe you can throw out another Crossfire token, and it is something your opponent has to deal with. Like, I kind of see it, right? But it's just difficult, because he has to get within red of the enemy. He has to get within red of the enemy to be useful, and yet he just doesn't actually enjoy the combat. And they're trying to make you believe that he does, but he doesn't. He doesn't have a gun, which is a shame, right? Because in this team, even having a lasgun would just let him put on Crossfire tokens. Like, I shoot with my lasgun, you got a Crossfire token, then I move up. You can buy him a lasgun for 2 EP if that's what you wanted to do. Buy him a las pistol for 1 EP. If you took him, I probably would buy him a las pistol just to get him to be able to do something. But yeah, not a fan. Let's have a little look at the Icon Ward. So the Icon Ward, again, no gun. Okay, cool. Same things apply about how you can buy him a gun. He has a large knife. It's got 5 crit damage and 4 attacks, which is not ridiculously awful, but not actually good. It's fine. He does the standard icon thing, but he can do it from red away. So this is quite interesting. And I missed this the first time I read it. Okay. So when determining control of an objective marker within red of the operative, treat the total APL characteristic of friendly Brood Brother operatives within the required distance of that objective marker as being 1 higher. Note, this is not a modifier. So you've got that. You've also got, just as I did mention, right, idolization. So if you're within red of the Icon Ward and you spend 1 CP, you can retain a failed hit as a successful normal hit, or 1 successful normal hit as a critical hit instead, right? And you've also got Brood Mind Devotion. Once per turning point, when a ready friendly Brood Brother operative will be incapacitated within red of this operative, you can use this ability. If you do, before that operative is incapacitated, it can perform 1 free action, not fight or mind control. More about mind control later. And you can change its order to do so. It's then incapacitated to normal. You can't use this ability and the medic ability. So, he's alright. But he didn't... Okay. What I like about him, compared to the Agitator, is the Icon Ward doesn't need to push as far forward. The Icon Ward doesn't need to be in red of the enemy. The Icon Ward just needs to be in red of an objective that you've got some other dudes on. Right, which he's then buffing those other people on the objective. He buffs the APL, right? He lets them come back. He lets them do a shoot on death, right? If appropriate to do so. And with a CP, he can buff them if they end up in combat. That's not bad. That's not bad, right? It's sad that it can't be fight, right? Because that would synergize really well with his the icon worship CP thing, because then people, and if you died, you could do another fight. And you also worth noting that it has to be a ready friendly operative that dies that he then uses his devotion on, because otherwise you just use him. You know, you'd if you could use him on an operative that activated, what you'd do is you'd deploy him and a plasma gun behind an Octarius door, and then somebody would jump out. On the enemy would, like, they put someone out there, you'd run your plasma gun out, you'd kill somebody with your plasma gun's sitting in the open, right? And then somebody else comes along, kills the plasma gun, and then your icon ward who's behind the, because he doesn't need he doesn't need line of sight, right? And then you just go, I'm within red, and then you get a second plasma shot. But you can't do that because it must be a ready friendly brood brother, so you can't ever use to double up, right? So your gunners are going to be quite safe usually behind doors or ready to climb onto vantage points. But what he can do, what he basically wants to do, is you put a barricade down that's kind of nearish to an objective, and you run out to the barricade, anchor him down there on his conceal order, buffing everybody on the objective, which is all right. It's something, right? The knight, I love the knife fighter. I think he's really cool because I love lethal 5-up, and I go, oh look, lethal 5-up, that's really nice. So he's natively hitting on 3s, which is a veritable luxury in this team, and he's got Relentless, so he doesn't really care about your Crossfire tokens, to be quite honest with you. You know, hits on 3 with Relentless, lethal 5-up, excellent. He can charge from Conceal, excellent, really, really popular ability. And he's got this counter attack. So each time this operative fights in combat and they resolve a successful hit step of the combat, each time your opponent resolves a successful normal hit, the enemy operative suffers 1 mortal wound. So I quite like this guy because you can charge someone, right? And then you're probably going to get a crit. 4 dice, lethal 5, lethal hitting on 3s, lethal 5-up Relentless. So you resolve your crit for 4, right? And then if they do something with a normal hit, they take a damage, and then you hit them for 3 and they die, right? Or they parry you, okay. You know, he's not brilliant, but he's got a decent chance of killing an 8-wound model on the charge, right? And you've got Conceal, so you can pick your targets. He's got a decent chance of killing an 8-wound model on the charge, which I think is pretty cool. I think he's a pretty good lad. You know, obviously against elites, he's got a bit less interest about him because no 7-wound model is going to kill like a 14-wound model in a single round of combat, really. But he can try and fit, you know, the nice thing about him is he's can stay concealed all the time. Generally, he can pick his battles, yeah. So generally, get him round, and try and pick off somebody that needs finishing off. I think he's a good piece. You know, you don't even necessarily have to trade with him as well, because as we saw, or where are we? If we go to our ploys, do I mean the tactical ploys? Yeah, you've got Insidious, so where you can do a free dash. So because he's still on Conceal, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that you could do a charge, and then you could fight, possibly kill somebody, and then like use the 1 CP for Insidious to dash away. That's, you know, and get back behind some light cover. It's a possibility. It's a possibility because he'll be on Conceal the whole time. I quite like that. Medic. So you've got a medic, a pretty standard medic. And then he's also got this funny little gene needler. So he's got a limited close combat attack. Right, lethal 5-up again. We love lethal 5-up. But you're only rolling 1 dice, hitting on 4s, critting on 5s. Okay. And it does 5-7 damage. So he can, if you can roll a 5-up, he can like 1-hit a Vet Guard or a Novi or another Brood Brother, which is just, it's funny. Obviously, he's not what he's mainly for. He's mainly for reviving people with medic ability or healing them with the medikit, right? But we know what a medic is because we've seen a lot of medics this time. Yeah. Then we got the Sapper. Sapper's another one that I think is really, really good. So the Sapper does a number of things. He doesn't have a gun, but he's got a demolition charge, a crack grenade, and a frag grenade, right? Now, the demolition charge is 5-6 damage, hits on 3s, right? All his things will hit on 3s, because remember, frag and crack grenades always hit on 3s regardless of your team. So he's hitting on 3s. Demolition charge, 4 dice hitting on 3s, 5-6. Range red, blast, AP1, indirect, limited, and unwieldy. So it does take him 2 AP to throw his demo charge. This is just like the Orc Commando's dynamite. And we know how much people love Commando dynamite, right? I think he has explosives as well. We'll read explosives in a minute. But honestly, a lot of people don't like this guy because they're comparing him to the Vet Guard, like demo guy. And what you can't do is rely on the explosives. What I think he's for is the throw grenades and throw his demolition charge. And yes, you will need to comms him to give him free APL so you can move and throw that demo charge in the same activation. But I think that's a reasonably straightforward combo and play to pull off. So traditionally, with a team like Vet Guard, players are all about finding ways to put down their explosives and then pretty much immediately blow them up. So they're using the explosives as an offensive weapon, they're literally running up with the mine and putting it in your face and then trying to jump back and blow it up and stuff. This guy, I think you have to use him quite differently. His explosives are interesting. I think you have to basically use them as area denial. So I'll read the explosive rules. 1 AP. The first time you perform the action during the battle, place the explosives token visible to within black of the objective. The second time the operative performs the action during the battle, each operative within white of the token suffers 2d6 mortal wounds. The operative can only perform the action twice and can't perform it while within engagement range of an enemy operative. So what I think you do is turn 1, you run this guy up and you place his explosives down somewhere where you think it might be useful for you to control that area of the board. Your objective isn't really to kill anybody with his explosives. Objective is to try and make your opponent worry about going there, right? Because 2d6 mortal wounds could kill like most things if you roll hot. It's a worrier, and yeah, I think that has good effect. Because the other thing he has is his final defiance. So when he dies, you can choose, you can perform an explosives action. So even if you haven't actually, because we might think, people will just kill him, but just be sure that what you can't do is run onto the objective that he's placed his explosives and then kill him, right? Because he'll die and he'll take you with him. But equally, if you kill him, his explosion doesn't automatically go off. You choose whether or not to do it. But really, I would think of the explosives as an extra thing, something for him to do on turn 1 when nobody's going to be within range red of his grenades, and he's going to spend turn 2, 3, and 4 throwing one of his 3 grenades on each of those turns. I think that's basically his thing. And that demolition charge is really good. Yeah, you're probably going to have to comms him, right? And your opponent's going to try not to give you the shot, but again, it's a game with objectives. People are going to want to move forward and want to get on the objectives. Yeah, you got to telegraph it with the comms, activate comms, give him an APL, and then he's stood there. But that can be useful in its own right. That Sapper is stood there with an extra APL, holding a piece of dynamite, looking in my general direction. I want to go in that direction, but it becomes a problem that they need to solve. And it's potentially a big problem when it's 5-6 AP1. I really like him. I think he's pretty cool. Also, just having this mad bomber running around with a big block of dynamite is pretty fun. The veteran. So a little bit less to say about the veteran. The veteran has an interesting little. He has an Arbite shotgun basically. So at close range, it's pretty good. 4 dice hitting on 3, 4, 4. Nice. He's got a slightly upgraded close combat weapon because he's got a little Gene Stealer claw knocking around out the back. Nice. He also has a 5-up Feel No Pain, which is pretty lovely. We love a Feel No Pain, okay? And then he has Bodyguard, so he can do that on Questioning Loyalty, Tactical Ploy for 0 CP if he's the friendly Brood Guard operative. So basically, this guy's following around your, I would suggest a Primus or a Patriarch, right? And just getting in the way, firing his shotgun, right? If they're trying to shoot him rather than shoot your Primus or your Patriarch, then good, and you've got Feel No Pain, so you might not die, right? And if they're trying to shoot your Patriarch or your Primus, then they've got to kill your veteran first, and you've got resilient, so you might not die. Like, it's great. It's basically a piece of war gear for your big... The thing about this team is, as far as I can see, you have to really make hay from either your patriarch or your Primus, whichever one you decide to take. You could take a Magus. I don't rate him particularly highly, because that's what stops you from just being like a guard team with a few less operatives, you know. But yeah, I think that's cool. It's a cool model. I would always take it, and you just buddy it around. And yeah, it is obvious, but your opponent doesn't really have a lot of counterplay to it. Like, they can either kill him, which is fine, that's what you want, right? Because then they're not shooting your guy, or they can kill your guy, and then they have to kill him anyway. Good. Vox Operator. So he has the rubbish Imperial Guard comms, right? So it has to be both visible and within red to do comms. But he also has Jam, which is really interesting. So I'll read this one. So Jam, 1+ AP. So select one enemy operative in this operative's line of sight, or visible to this operative if you pay one additional action point. Okay. Roll a d6. Until the end of the turning point, that enemy operative is treated as having a group activation characteristic of 1. Can't be activated or perform actions until it's the last enemy operative to be activated, or a number of enemy operatives have been activated equal to the result of a d6. Whichever comes first. So, really, really good at just blowing up your enemy's plans, right? Like, because people are like, I want to do this, and this, and then you go, what? Jam. And suddenly they're like, okay, I guess. And then they probably do something suboptimal, which is fun. So I like that. There's a little extra ability. You know, Imperial Guard just get a comms, right? That just does the comms thing, and they love it. So the fact that you've got the option of potentially doing this extra thing on top of that, you know, makes you a better comms. So that's pretty cool. And also, you know, and it shouldn't be notable, but in this team it is, remember to bring his lasgun. So, of course, you can target people, you know, if you want to, you can target people with your lasgun. It probably won't hurt them, but you can stick an extra Crossfire token out for your big guns, right? And so now we're on to the special stuff, the little bits that go in those 3 little slots. So we've been through all the main bits. And we're going to go for the Psychic Familiar. So if you've got 3 slots, remember. If you put these in one of your slots, you get these 2 little mini Gene Stealer Goblin things. Okay. They have the normal move. They have 2 APL. They GA2, so they activate together. A defense of 2, a 5-up save, and 3 wounds. Right. They are small, so essentially they can't have equipment, and they have Super Conceal. Okay, and they can fall back for 1 AP. They're elusive, so they can perform mission actions while within engagement range of an enemy operative, which you can always do, to be fair. Could be future-proofing for next edition, don't know. It does say this takes precedence over cannot, so if someone can think of a thing in the game that stops you from doing mission actions when it's in combat with you, maybe it's that, right? You can move through operatives, but you can't finish on their bases. You can move within engagement range of enemy operatives, and you can finish a charge action within engagement range of any enemy operative. So they're very mobile, little action monkeys. You're gonna run forwards with them. You're gonna do actions, and then they're probably ultimately gonna die. Like, Super Conceal can only save you for so long, but there is 2 of them, and actions win games, right? And getting those early points will win you games, and you know, it frees up 2 of your guys with guns to do other stuff, because they're not going, oh, somebody's got to like action the home objective, right? Oh, great, you're playing loot. Just park a familiar, just park a familiar on the home objective behind a wall, like a light cover on conceal, going loot, loot, loot. Loot. And then you haven't got somebody else that has to do that job. It's the worst part of playing loot, right? So I quite like a Psychic Familiar as it goes. Right, Magus. So the way this works is you've got 3 slots. The Magus and the Primus take 2, and then the Patriarch takes all 3. So you can only ever have one of a Magus, a Primus, and a Patriarch, and then effectively, yes, you could take Troopers. We're not going to. Effectively, if you take the Magus, you get your 2 little guys. If you take the Primus, you get your 2 little guys. If you take the Patriarch, no little guys. Okay? Bear that in mind. So Maguses. they have 3 APL, okay, 9 wounds and a 4-up save, right? Auto pistol, bio dagger, and 4 stave. So bio dagger's pretty fun because it's got lethal 4+, but it's only got 2 attack dice. 4 stave doesn't have the lethal 4-up, but doesn't have the lethal 4+, but it does have 4 attack dice. I'm not clever enough to tell you which of those. If you find yourself in close combat, I guess it depends how many wounds they have. You're going to roll 4 dice. If you roll 2 dice, you're probably going to get 1 4-up. So if 6 wounds will kill them, maybe go for the bio dagger, right? But if you're in it for the long haul, then probably go for the 4 stave. Doesn't really want to be in combat anyway, to be perfectly honest, right? That's more of a, when things have gone bad, this is what I'm going to try and do. His main thing is he brings you a big global buff, right? So your friendly Brood Brother operatives have 5-up invulnerable save. They can't be injured and their APL can't be negatively modified. So there's a great combo, isn't there? Right? If you've got your invulnerable save, there's a great combo with embedded. So embedded lets you retain 2 dice when you're in cover. If your save is invulnerable and those dice are still available to be retained, so you're automatically saving 2 dice even against a plasma gun if you're in cover behind heavy terrain with the spoilers. If you have the Magus, that's quite nice. But I just don't think it's worth the opportunity cost of the other things that you could take instead of the Magus. Let's look at what else you can do. So he's got 2 psychic powers. Telepathic Overload, 1 AP, psychic action, pick a visible enemy operative, subtract 1 from its APL. Reasonably powerful, okay. But actually it's there to combo with the next one, right? Mental Onslaught, 1 AP, psychic action. Select 1 enemy operative in this operative's line of sight. They suffer 2 mortal wounds. If they're within red of the operative, they suffer 4 mortal wounds instead. Then you roll a d6. If the result is higher than their APL, it suffers another 2 mortal wounds. Keep rolling until the enemy operatives until you roll less than their APL, or they've suffered 8 mortal wounds. Okay, which will kill all the non-elites, right, with 8 mortal wounds. So that's pretty good. So if you can see somebody, and they're a APL, if they're an APL 2 model with 8 wounds, you can go, right, 1 AP telepathic overload, so now you've got 1 APL, and then 1 AP mental onslaught, right, and then you're rolling 4 dice and hoping you don't roll a 1, which is, it's kind of funny, right? But like, knowing my luck, I'd roll the first dice, it'd instantly be a 1 and be like, it does nothing. Well, no, it's still, no, sorry, 3 dice, because you automatically do the 2 mortals, right? So 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah, so you got to roll 3 dice. So yeah, chances are you won't roll a 1 if you're rolling 3 dice, right? But, and then you've killed the 8 wound model, and that's nice, it's alright, it's pretty good, and it's got infinite range, and it doesn't need, well, everything has infinite range, Phil, that's not impressive. What I meant to say is it doesn't need you to have line of sight, you just need to have visibility, so that's quite good at removing people who are like stealths behind a barricade and stuff like that. Not bad. But I think I prefer the Primus, right? So the Primus has a scoped needle pistol, right? So 4 dice, close range. So when he's doing the red hits on 2s, 2/4 damage, lethal 5-up silent. Long range, still 2/4 damage, lethal 5-up silent, but he's hitting on 3s instead. His scope needle pistol isn't really what he's here for, but it does give him something to do while he closes the gap. Bone sword and toxin jet to claw. Yes, 5 dice hitting on 2s, 4/5 damage, lethal 5-up with rending. You're going to kill some dudes. That's pretty good. He has 3 APL and he can shoot or fight twice, which is really good. You can get yourself an AP, a CP rather, if you want. If you find yourself with a leftover APL, you get yourself a CP. That's pretty good. And the big thing he does, he has his mastermind ability, which should mean that you're going first mostly of the time. Maybe. I don't know. Once per turning point, after rolling off to determine the initiative, you can do one of the following. You can add 1 to your roll, okay, and if you didn't go first last turn, you can straight up re-roll your dice, which should get you the first turn more often than it doesn't, okay, but these things aren't always guaranteed. So I think I prefer the Primus to the Magus, but I'd want to play games with them. If I was playing this team, I'd want to play games with them both and get a feel for it, like, feel it out, but I think the Primus is better. But that Magus ability to kill like an 8 wound guy who's like all the way over there, concealed behind a barricade, is pretty cool. Potentially, if you don't fluff the 3 rolls, so it's swings and roundabouts. The big guy, the patriarch. So maybe you're wondering why I'm even talking about all these little ones, because you're thinking I'm going to take the patriarch every single time. Maybe that's the right play. Like, he has 21 wounds, and he has a 4-up save that's invulnerable. Okay, he rolls 5 dice, hits on 2s, 5-6 damage, relentless and rending on a crit. That's not bad. Okay, his APL can never be modified. His APL's 4. He can activate twice, but you have to have the action points to spend. You stay ready while you have. So he can't move more than red plus blue. Now, I've been a big stan for the shapes or the colours, right? I think they're really good at helping people to understand what's going on, and I use them naturally. But this is the second time, the first time not in a random FAQ, but this is the second time we've had shape math. I think by the time we're including this shape math, then we should just have numbers and use tape measures. And then this is coming from, I know there were people that were like, yes, I was on team tape measure from the very beginning, Phil, what? But I think this is, it's getting silly, right? Even I can see now, when we're now doing red plus blue, we're getting silly, right? So can't move more than red plus blue per turning point. Each time you activate it, you generate as many action points for the activation as you can. So it has 4. You activate it, you say, I'm generating 3 APL, do a thing, and then you can activate it again for use the last APL, for example. You can never give it equipment. Light terrain doesn't work for it, and models with a wounds characteristic of less than 15 don't provide cover for it. Fine. Mind control. 2 AP. Psychic action. Select one enemy operative visible to and within circle of this operative. Both players roll 1d6 and add their respective operative's APL to the total. If your total is higher than your opponent's, you can resolve the action's effect. Until the end of the activation, that enemy operative is a friendly operative, an enemy operative for your opponent. You can change its order, and it can perform a free action. It cannot perform an action which it moves other than dash. You can specify the location for your opponent to move the operative to, and you can only resolve the action once per battle. So notice, you can attempt it as many times as you want until you've resolved it once, right? So it's not like because it is a gamble, it might do absolutely nothing. So how are we using this? What we're going to try and do is we're going to activate our patriarch. We're going to declare that we're generating 3 APL, right? So we're going to charge somebody, right? And then having charged them, we're going to mind control the person we've just charged, which we can do because we mind control them, right? And then they become friendly. So then they're not in combat. So then they can shoot, all right? So you charge someone, you mind control them, and hopefully they've got something nice like a plasma gun. They turn around and kill somebody, right? And then you end your activation. Well, they're locked in combat with a patriarch. Not great. And then hopefully they don't hopefully, like in an ideal world, the person that you're charging wouldn't be ready, right? They'd have already acted. They'd be like a plasma gunner that's popped out, killed one of your guys, right? Gone, I've killed a guy, and you've gone, cool, giant gene stealer daddy. Because if they're ready, chances are if they're like a marine, they'll fall back and then shoot you, which is upsetting. But if they're not ready, then you can activate for your last activation and do a fight action. And then you've killed 2 people with 1 patriarch. That's pretty cool. If your mind control doesn't get off, then fine, it doesn't get off, but you're still locked in combat. You're still safe from being shot because you're in combat where you want to be. And then you can, fight in your next activation. I think that's pretty cool. You've also got the ability, so in Shadows, if you're not trying to do the things I outlined and you have the spare AP, you can also change back to conceal from engage, or from conceal to engage, but I don't think you'd ever do that. But you can change your order for an AP, which is pretty cool. Okay. Finally, a trooper, a model so forgettable that most of the memory books, you'll notice the screenshot is conspicuously worse because most people who reviewed the book didn't even bother to show the trooper's profile. But I wanted to mention, you can take basic troopers as part of your main team, or in one of your 3 specialist slots. You would never take them as part of your main team And at one point I was like, oh, maybe you could take them as specialist slots because you could get to 13 activations, but of course they have GA2, so you can't. The team is capped at 12 activations. I can't think of any scenario where you'd want a trooper. If you can, let me know in the comments. Say no to troopers. Equipment. So let's go through the equipment really quickly. Frag grenades and crack grenades, we know what those are. Cult knife for 1 EP. It gives you 1 extra attack dice. It takes you up to 4 attack dice on like a basic bayonet attack. Okay. Hotshot capacitor pack for 2 EP. Adds 1 to the damage characteristics of lasguns and las pistols for the rest of the battle. Nice. You can have a las pistol for 1 EP if you didn't bring a gun. You can have a lasgun for 2 EP if you didn't bring a gun. Covert guys, this is the interesting one. 3 EP. The operative gains this ability for the battle. Covert guys, at the end of the scouting step, if this operative is wholly within your drop zone and has a conceal order, it can perform a free dash action. If it does so, its order cannot be changed during the first turning point, e.g. as a result of the infiltrate option in the scouting step. I think you go for 3 covert guises. I'll just read the last one. Cult Talisman, 2 EP. Once a battle, when a shooting attack is made against this operative, in the resolve a successful save step of the shooting attack, you can change one of your retained normal saves to a critical save. It's not bad. So you're never taking grenades because you're taking the excellent Sapper who gets both of the grenades for free. So you can forget having to spend your equipment points and take a crack grenade. Good. So I like 3 covert guises. Where would I put my covert guises? Well, I might put one on the knife fighter, right? To get him up the board with an extra dash. He can charge out of conceal, so he doesn't care that he's locked to conceal. So he can become quite a threat for the mid board. Good. The Sapper might well benefit from an extra dash because he can, from conceal, quite happily plant his explosives. So if you've got your eye on a particular location in the board where you want to get that explosives token down because you just want to dissuade your opponent from camping maybe an objective, maybe a choke point, it could be used on the Sapper. And the comms, right? Why the comms? Well, again, he has the utility to be able to do both of his actions from conceal, not a problem. And also, he vaguely wants to keep pace with the Sapper because probably in turn 2, you're going to want a 3 APL Sapper to try and throw your giant wodge of dynamite into somebody's face and explode all their teeth. And then you've got a point. So you've got a las pistol. So you give it your icon ward because you forgot to bring a gun. Right? And then maybe you can put a token on somebody at some point. Or I guess you could give a cult if you're bringing a melter gun, which I generally wouldn't, right, as a sort of baseline, but a lot of times I would bring a melter gun. If you're bringing a melter gun, maybe you give him a knife so that when your melter inevitably gets charged because he's short ranged, he has an extra dice to try and parry out with and survive until somebody that wants to be in combat can arrive to solve the problem. Neither of them are particularly exciting, but you've got 1 EP and those are the 2 places where you can stick it. TAC Ops. Militant Leadership. Reveal this TAC Op when an enemy operative loses a wound as a result of your leader operative. When you do, start a militant leadership tally for your kill team, adding 1 to the tally each time an enemy operative loses a wound as a result of your leader operative, including the first time and including a result of the mind control action. If your militant leadership tally is 12 or more, you score 1 VP. If you achieve the first condition at the end of the battle, your leader operative has been incapacitated, you score 1 VP. I think this is kind of a gimme with the patriarch, right? 12 damage is like less than 1 whole marine, so that's not bad. I think it's pretty doable with the Primus as well. It might even be doable with the Magus. Like, I quite like this one. And it synergizes really well with, oh, kill somebody and then stay alive, you say. There's a seek and destroy tap ploy that does that as well, isn't it? You can do twice, right? If you're killing in close combat. So, yeah, I like militant leadership. We've also got Clandestine Elimination, which I will read out to you. Reveal this TAC Op when you complete the first condition. You score victory points for doing so. If an enemy operative is incapacitated by a friendly Brood Brother operative within red of it, and that friendly operative is not in line of sight of other enemy operatives, when it happens, you score a VP. Do it again for a second VP. Pretty good. Especially against elite teams where you're more likely to encounter operatives on their own. If your opponent thinks you have this, or after you've scored the first VP from it, and they start to deliberately engage in counterplay, then it can become pretty hard to score the second VP unless you're planning to table them. So I don't personally think it's as nice as military leadership, but it's not bad. Like, I think it's very scoreable, very doable. Let's look at meticulous preparation. So reveal this TACOP when a friendly operative performs the prepare for ascension mission action. Oh, why do they keep writing these? If over half the objective markers are prepared by your kill team, you score 1 VP. Over half of the objective markers. If friendly objectives control over half of the objective markers, you score 1 VP. None of them need to be prepared by your kill team. You prepare for ascension with 1 epic. Look, no, this is hot garbage. If you've done all this, you've won anyway. Because you control more than half the objectives, right? And you've had a chance to you've got so many spare activations that you've done stuff on the objectives, and no, this is awful. Never take it. So, what would I consider doing for a simple list? A sample list. Commander with the las pistol, power weapon, and claw. Gunner with grenade launcher, gunner with plasma gun, an icon ward, going to give him a las pistol, knife fighter with covert guys, medic, sapper with covert guys, sniper veteran, vox operator with covert guys, 2 psychic familiars and a primus. That would be my kind of, if I was playing this team, I'm probably never going to play this team, but if I was playing this team, that would be the list that I would throw down within my very first game, and I would go for lessons learned from there onwards, right? So, additional models. So, yeah, here's the thing. If you were building the list on the previous page, you would lack the following things that you could potentially want on your roster, right? Because you'd have 10, 11, 12, 50... Yeah, yeah. And you actually couldn't fit all this on your roster, could you? Because the little fellas are still 2 individual models. Interesting. Because you've got a roster limit of 20. But irrelevant anyway. So, you don't have an agitator, you don't have a gunner with a melter gun, you don't have a gunner with flamer, and you don't have the 3 troopers that you could potentially be using. I don't think the troopers and the flamer have a use case. Again, if you think, no, you've missed something about troopers, or God forbid, you've missed something about flamers, let me know in the bottom. But I would say picking up, especially that melter gun, more than anything else, being able to swap the melter gun and the sniper, like that's the one thing that you're going to want to look at the board every single time and go, what kind of game is it? What kind of board is it? And swap. And you might want to swap, other things you'd want to swap from your roster are like, are you going Patriarch? Are you going Primus? Right, depending on what's going on. But maybe you want an agitator, not least because it's a cool new Genestealer cult theme model, and maybe I'm wrong, and that's a thing that you should have and try games with. So you're probably going to want some extra Cadians. You've basically got 2 options. You can buy, 3 options. Hey, you could wait for the Genestealer cult kill team to come out separately and buy it again and get a second upgrade sprue and have loads of extra Genestealery bits. Every single person can have a Genestealer helmetless head, right? You could buy yourself the 10 Cadian shock troops, and then maybe try and use a couple of them, like half of them, split them with a friend, do whatever you want to do. You could buy the command squad, which is a hair cheaper, not half the price or anything, and you only get half the bodies. Get some extra interesting cool bits. Maybe kit bash the officer with the Primus, to make a custom Primus. That's an interesting idea. It doesn't quite give you enough bodies if you wanted to build everything there. So, your mileage may vary. I would say if you buy one of these boxes to build your agitator and your gunner with melter gun, you may as well build the flamer, just because then you've got it, and then if flamers become really good in the new edition, you're like, well, I've already built and painted a flamer. Unless you find building and painting and having an extra model just that arduous, don't get me wrong, you probably won't use it, but at least you have the bits there in case that you want it, right? I'm a big advocate for having, like, the collect, because the rules will change, right? I'm a big advocate for having a collection of all the pieces that you might want for something if the models are there, right? Yeah. Right, final thoughts. First of all, what have I got wrong and missed? Because I'm not very good at the game. I famously came last once at a tournament, so I've done my best to analyse what's going on, but let me know. I really am looking forward to hobbying on these guys. I really enjoy the Brood Brothers theme. Zimbad's telling me this makes me very weird because he knows people who are Genestealer cult players, and they, like, if you like Genestealer cults, you're kind of hacked off that these Brood Brothers are coming out because Brood Brothers are lame. I think Brood Brothers are really cool. I think they're cool. Like, I always thought that Chaos Guardsmen were cool, and Brood Brothers are cooler than Chaos Guardsmen because they're more like they're corrupted and evil, but they're like more peoply. Like, you know, by which I mean, Chaos Guardsmen tend to just kind of hulk out and start screaming and pulling off people's arms, right? Brood Brothers are like, oh, we're gonna go and like attach like mines to the dam, and then when at the appointed time we're gonna set off our booby traps and, you know, flood this thing. You know, they're intelligent and they're cunning and they're deceitful, whereas a lot of the time, and I'm sure there's examples in the fluff where chaos cultists are like that as well, but more generally I think that the Brood Brothers tend to have that stuff covered. I think they're really cool. So right, that's over an hour. So a big thank you to all my members, especially for Nightfall and Massive Crit, who have subscribed at the highest tier. If you can help out monetarily, you know, the revenue I actually get from ads on YouTube is not fantastic. So if you can help monetarily, like, channel membership is always really appreciated. You get to look at all the past live streams. After live streams are free for everyone to join on the day, but all the past live streams are just members only. So that's a little thing, and you get an extra room on the Discord as well, where we can talk about anything and everything off topic. That's quite nice as well. If you're not subscribed, just normal, regular subscribed for free, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. You know, the only way, as far as anybody knows, that I can become one of these people that gets these stuff early for review, like at 10 a.m. yesterday, is if I get up to like 10,000 subscribers, and right now I'm on like almost 2,000, so, you know, it would help. Even if you don't feel like you need to subscribe to get the notifications or anything, you're doing it for me, not for you, right? Subscribe to the channel and never watch it again, that's fine. I mean, I'd prefer you watch the channel, but just, my number needs to go up, okay? Other than that, I'm begging for subs finished, right? Thank you. Mildly debased myself on the internet for your amusement. Time for me to go to sleep, so thank you. And I'll have the Halfkin Jaegers up on Tuesday, so look forward to that. Bye-bye, bye-bye-bye, bye-bye, goodbye.